She looked so disgusted to see where they lived as she warned Ugochi to keep away from her son, or else she would ensure that she makes her life a living hell. Ugochi was so terrified as she knew how powerful Adaku was in their village. Her old father advised her to keep away from the rich woman's son, Chitana, because he feared what will happen to her if she continued to see him. Once upon a time, there lived a very rich woman named Adaku who had two sons. She lived in a very big house with her sons who were destined to inherit all of her wealth. Her sons Lotana and Chitana were identical twins who lived completely different lives. Whilst Lotana was a carefree boy filled with pride and pomposity, Chitana was more reserved and humble. One day, the twins were heading to their friend's house when a poor hungry girl approached them to beg for some money. She revealed to them that she had not eaten in days and pleaded for some money to buy food. Lotana, furious as to why a dirty-looking poor girl would stop him on the street, pushed the poor girl away as he began to yell. His brother Chitana immediately rushed to the poor girl's side as he comforted her. He then reached into his pocket and pulled out some money, which he gave to the poor girl to buy some food, and the girl thanked him for being so kind. Chitana watched as the girl left their presence in smiles. He felt a joy in his heart that he had not felt before and was glad to have been of help to the poor girl. Days passed, but Chitana could not take his mind off the poor girl. Her image was stuck in his mind and her memory put a smile on his lips. He decided on one morning to go in search of the girl, and as luck would have it, he bumped into the girl on the busy street. Chitana was so delighted to see her again as he approached her to ask for her name. "My name is Ugochi," the poor girl said to him as he introduced himself to her as Chitana. Ugochi and Chitana became extremely close and spent most of their time together. They would spend hours talking and laughing by the village stream and soon fell deeply in love with each other. Chitana was head over heels in love with Ugochi despite knowing that she was from a very poor family. One day, Lotana was returning home with his friends when he came across his twin brother and Ugochi talking on the street. Lotana could not believe his eyes as he looked so disgusted to see his brother talking to the poor and dirty-looking girl. He walked up to them and began to rain insults at Ugochi, calling her condescending names, and Ugochi, feeling so humiliated, ran away in shame. She could not stand the humiliation and wondered what crime she had committed for being poor. Chitana was so furious at his twin brother for what he did to Ugochi and warned him never to say such horrible words to her again. Lotana had never seen his twin brother so angry in his life and decided to discuss what happened with their mother Adaku, who called her son Chitana and warned him sternly never to see the poor girl again, because if he dares to go against her instructions, he would regret the day that he was born. Adaku also decided to pay Ugochi a visit in their little hut. She looked so disgusted to see where they lived as she warned Ugochi to keep away from her son, or else she would ensure that she makes her life a living hell. Ugochi was so terrified as she knew how powerful Adaku was in their village. Her old father advised her to keep away from the rich woman's son, Chitana, because he feared what will happen to her if she continued to see him. However, Chitana was not willing to let go of Ugochi. He was so in love with her and couldn't stand a life without her. Adaku, seeing how withdrawn Chitana was because of Ugochi, decided to go in search of a wife for her sons. She believed that doing so would ensure that her sons got married to girls from reputable homes who would love them genuinely and not be focused on her wealth. She paid a visit to her rich friend Ngozi, who had a very beautiful daughter, to discuss the possibility of a marriage between her son Chitana and her friend's daughter Ego. Her friend Ngozi was so delighted, as this had always been her wish. She spoke to her daughter Ego, who had always had a crush on Chitana, and Ego was so excited as her dream of becoming Chitana's wife was finally becoming a reality. Adaku and her friend Ngozi then decided that Ego would come visiting the next evening so as to get acquainted with Chitana, and Ego was so excited as she looked forward to her visit. Later that night, Adaku returned home and informed her son Chitana of her decision to make Ego his wife, and Chitana told his mother that her plan would never work because his heart belonged to another. His twin brother Lutana tried to persuade him to give Ego a chance, but Chitana refused as his mind was already made up. When morning came, Chitana decided to pay Ugochi a visit in her hut when he bumped into Ugochi and her father on the street. Chitana was so excited to see them both, but Ugochi's father did not seem pleased to see him. "How could you do this to us?" he said as he fumed in anger. "What did I do?" Chitana asked, as Ugochi's father revealed to him that his daughter Ugochi was pregnant. In that moment, Chitana leaped for joy as he smiled at Ugochi, who was perplexed at his reaction. They arrived at Chitana's home and met his mother, who was shocked to hear the news of the pregnancy. Her grand plan to ensure that her twin sons married from a wealthy family was now being threatened as her son had gotten a wretched girl pregnant. Adaku's anger was fierce as a storm as she looked at Ugochi and her father in disgust. Chitana, however, could not contain his joy as things were finally working out better than he had ever planned. Ugochi's father informed Adaku that her son Chitana would have to perform the marital rites of his daughter if he wanted to be in the life of the child. Adaku, knowing the traditions of their land, was not willing to have her grandchild bear the name of Ugochi's father, as their tradition states that if a man refuses to marry a woman he got pregnant, the child would have no other option but to bear the name of the woman's father. Adaku, seeing that her hands were tied, agreed to their union and fixed a date for their traditional wedding, which was in a few days. She looked at Ugochi and apologized for how badly she had treated her in the past, and everyone was shocked as they never saw it coming. As Ugochi and her father were about leaving, Adaku pleaded with Ugochi's father to allow his daughter live with her for 2 days for them to get acquainted before the wedding, and Ugochi's father agreed. Chitana was so happy at how things were playing out, as he could not wait for Ugochi to finally become his wife. Ugochi moved into Chitana's home that evening, and when Ego arrived, she was disappointed to hear that her proposed wedding to Chitana would no longer hold, as Chitana had gotten another girl pregnant. Ego was so devastated and decided to return back home. Chitana's twin brother Lutana, on seeing how sad she was, decided to escort her back home. Ugochi, although happy to be in the home of the man that she so loved, was still terrified of Chitana's mother. Night came, and Ugochi went to bed in her room. She was extremely tired as the pregnancy had begun to take a toll on her body. Ugochi slept off without even knowing it and woke up in the middle of the night to realize that all her hair had been shaved off. Ugochi was so terrified as she screamed at the top of her voice. Chitana, on hearing her scream, rushed to her room to see what had happened when he caught sight of Ugochi, who had no hair on her head. In that moment, Chitana knew that this was his mother's plan all along. He had never seen his mother act with such malice, and his heart sank as he watched the woman he loved in distress. Ugochi, trembling with fear, turned to Chitana as she panicked. She told him that women never cut their hair in her family as it was a taboo. She revealed that if a woman's hair is cut, the woman would run mad until the hair grows back, and Chitana felt a rage that he had never felt before. He confronted his mother, who seemed nonchalant about what had just happened. He was so furious and told his mother that he would remain by Ugochi's side even if she was mad forever. His mother looked at him shocked, as she never thought that her son loved Ugochi that much. As the hours went by, Chitana watched as Ugochi ran mad before his eyes. His heart shattered into a million pieces to see the woman he loved become a shadow of herself. Chitana never forgave his mother for what she did to Ugochi, and all efforts by her to make things right with her son failed, as Chitana was focused on looking after his mad bride. He never left her side, as he dreaded the thought of any harm befalling their unborn baby and herself. As each day passed, Chitana looked forward to the day when Ugochi would finally become lucid. His twin brother Lotana later got married to Ego, the woman whom his mother had initially wanted him to marry, and Ego turned out to be a very horrible girl. She was extremely wicked and quarrelsome, and fought everyone at every given opportunity. All Ego was focused on was Adaku's wealth, as she never loved Lotana. Their home, which was once their peaceful abode, turned into a place of chaos and misery, and Lotana regretted his decision to ever marry Ego. Ego made life a living hell for them, and Adaku regretted ever welcoming her into her home. Lotana's marriage, although rich in material wealth, lacked love and happiness. The very thing that Adaku tried to avoid for her sons had come to pass with a rich girl who she thought would not be focused on her wealth. As the days grew into weeks and weeks into months, Chitana did everything within his power to look after the woman he so loved. Although her sanity had still not returned, Chitana's love for Ugochi increased in each passing day. He spoke to her with love, treated her with dignity, and cared for her with a tenderness that softened the hardest of hearts. Her father, although furious at what Adaku did to his daughter, was comforted by the love Chitana had for Ugochi, a love that was not threatened by her current madness. And as the months went by, Ugochi's pregnancy advanced and her hair began to grow. With the growth of each strand, fragments of Ugochi's mind began to return. One morning, Chitana realized that Ugochi was now lucid. She recognized him, and Chitana jumped for joy as the long-awaited day had finally arrived. Everyone was so excited, including Adaku, who wasted no time to apologize to Ugochi and Chitana for all the horrible things she had done. Ugochi, although sad about all that had transpired, forgave Adaku for her wrong because she understood that holding on to anger would only prolong her own suffering. Chitana, without wasting any more time, performed the traditional marital rites of Ugochi, making her his wife. Shortly after their marriage ceremony, Chitana and Ugochi moved out of his mother's house as they got a place of their own. Although Chitana forgave his mother, he could not risk any harm coming to his wife and newborn daughter, who was born shortly after their wedding. His mother Adaku lived the remaining of her life, constantly reminded of her mistakes as Ego continued to rain terror in her home. She watched as Chitana lived in peace with Ugochi and wished she never let her wealth cloud her sense of judgment. The lesson to be learned from this story is that we should not be quick to judge people based on their circumstances, but rather judge them based on the content of their character. Never look down on people or think you are better than others because of your wealth, as true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in the richness that resides within one's heart. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.